Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Felix here with your Word on the Street. And this is the final section of Proverbs 8, where the personified wisdom is actually giving her last bit of advice to man. And wisdom is pleading with man to be wise and to listen to her. And wisdom is saying that she's available for the taking, but man has to first make that move to accept her. And over all the things of the world, man has to step out and pursue her with his heart. That's the whole purpose here. And if there is obedience to pursue wisdom and not the world, she promises blessings. However, if there is disobedience in pursuing in wisdom, she guarantees harm and death brought onto themselves. And that's the problem, guys, is that we bring it onto ourselves. So let's get into our Bibles and turn to Proverbs chapter 8, verses 32 through 36. Wisdom's plea and conditional understanding. Verse 32 says, "Now, therefore, listen to me, my children, for blessed are those who keep my ways." Even though wisdom has been begging for the world to know that she is for everyone, not everyone will take advantage of her. They're going to miss out on reaping those benefits. So it's so crazy because, we all have the freedom to choose, but so many choose not to. And then they ultimately end up missing out on those blessings from God. So next, in the first part of verse 33 says, "Hear instruction." And the word right here, to hear, means not only to hear actively with our ears, but also the most important part is to listen with our heart. To hear instruction, it means to listen and obey with the heart. What wisdom is dishing out. Wisdom is dishing it out. Wisdom is bringing it. Wisdom's teaching here. And the very next part of the verse 33, says that the reason why hearing instruction will benefit us, it says, "And be wise." That is the whole purpose of the instruction, and be wise. When we listen, we refuse her instruction when we listen. We don't refuse it. This is a form of instruction that requires the use of chastisement or discipline to allow for change in those seeking wisdom. That's the purpose of this. But why discipline, right? Because wisdom is always profitable. And even though it may not always be feeling good, discipline is a requirement for obtaining wisdom. And there is no negotiable means of dodging discipline from wisdom. You got to face it. We must face discipline if we want to become wise, because we're not perfect, guys. And the author of Hebrews reminds us in chapter 12, verse 5, the author says that, "My son, do not despise the chastising of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him." So, it's expected. We're going to mess up. But the point is to be disciplined, meaning to change our ways and to get back on track. No one likes to be disciplined, guys. I know that. But it's necessary as we become more Christ-like. And then next, wisdom is telling us if we're seeking her out, if we're obedient and we want to be blessed, we must be willing to hear her out. And she says, "Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting on the post of my doors." By watching, it reflects a person who's awake, someone who is on the alert, to be on the lookout. A bolo, if you will, for wisdom is what it's saying. By waiting on the post means a place of a hedge of protection, to be on guard on the post of wisdom's doors. You're right there with wisdom. All right, one who's seeking wisdom, they got to place their hearts behind the hedge of protection to avoid those snares of wickedness. Wise people usually make correct decisions and they go about their business in a positive manner in their Christian walk all throughout life, right? So they're standing next to those posts of wisdom. So now let's look at God's promises for those who are obedient to his word. In verse 35 says, "For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord." That's awesome, right? That's a guarantee. That's a promise right there from God. Isn't that why we follow Christ for everlasting life? It is our reward for following wisdom. We obtain life both here on earth and in heaven. And the wise person will live as a testimony to wisdom, obtaining favor from the Lord, as they are acceptable to him and his delight. We're his greatest creation. That's so awesome. He says that we're his greatest. And now, although wisdom seems to be very gracious and abundant in her promises, she also gives a very stark warning to those who refuse her. And this is pretty deep here. In verse 36, let's take a look at it. Verse 36 says, "But he who sins against me wrongs his own soul. All those who hate me love death." I mean, this brings Proverbs 8 to a close, and it's a warning that is crystal clear. Those who refuse to accept wisdom brings injury to themselves, and those who hold God as an enemy or they're apart from him choose death over life. That's the alternative, death or life, guys. The word sin means to miss the mark, to be off target. And it's the wronging of one soul refers to someone who commits an act of violence against themselves. That's what they're referring to here. The picture is just not just the act to the body, but to the soul. And the soul is who we are as people. That's the most important part. There are very few verses as clear as this from Solomon where he says, "Those who hate me love death." And by choosing to live a life away from God, whether one knows it or not, they choose an eternal death. It's sad when people walk away from the Lord or they don't know the Lord. You got to get out there and talk to them about it. So how do we talk to others who may not be willing to walk with the Lord? Well, we must make sure that we do it first in love. No one wants to get bashed over the head, that they're living a life of sin and they're going to hell, right? No way. But there is a way that we can show love to others, and that'll make them want to question what we have that they don't have. And that's a perfect segment, just really to start talking to them about how Jesus has changed your life. That's a good way to start. Another great way is something you can do right now. Invite someone that you know who may not believe in Jesus to church. Take them out to lunch afterwards and just ask them, "Hey, what'd you think?" This is a perfect opportunity. Ensure that you're praying for God to lead people and others to you, and that you are a vessel of his love to others. And just remember this, though, guys. God's wisdom is available for everyone, but everyone must make the decision for themselves to either follow Jesus or ignore Jesus. Those who seek Jesus, they'll enjoy a life that's blessed. And it's not going to be easy. No one says, Jesus says it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be blessed. And you're going to be productive for the kingdom of God. There's an alternative, though, to those who reject God. And it can't be said enough, guys, that a life separated from God's wisdom will endure a life that is robbed of everlasting life. It's our commission to tell the world about Jesus. Don't be stingy. Give Jesus out to people. You got him, pass it on, right? Proverbs chapter 8, verses 32 through 36, wisdom's plea and conditional promises, and that's your word on the street.